Call to order the September 27th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll call on Councilmember George for our ceremonial opening.
Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business this evening is to adopt the agenda. We have several changes requested for our agenda. Change number 1, requested by the applicant to keep agenda item 6.1, North Harrison Hotels rezoning, on the table until the applicant requests to return to council for final action. Change number 2, requested by the applicant to table agenda item 6.5, 17 REZ 27, Bainbridge, Cary, Chapel Hill Road, until the applicant requests to return to council for final action. Change number 3, requested by the applicant to table agenda item 6.4, 18A01, Green Level West and Pine Rail Lane Properties Annexation, and 6.5, 18 REZ01, Green Level West Road and Pine Rail Lane to October 25th. Change number 4, move the manager's update to the first official item under recognitions, reports, and presentation. Is there a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion.
Is there anything left on the agenda?
There is. We have a few items left. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and that takes us to recognitions, reports, and presentations. And before we go to our first item, I would like to recognize Diane Wynn, Communications Coordinator for the League of Women Voters of Wake County, for a special presentation to Councilmember Bush and Councilmember Robinson. If you would meet her at the podium.
Good evening. My name is Diana Wynn. I'm a resident of Cary, but tonight I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Wake County. We're a nonpartisan political organization working to encourage active participation in government. Last month, on August 23rd, the League hosted its annual Women's Equality Day reception. And we do that to celebrate the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920 that acknowledged women's right to vote in this country. And that evening, we recognized all women currently elected to state and county offices, to city and town councils within Wake County, and to the judiciary. Unfortunately, Councilors Bush and Robinson were unable to attend that reception. Our reception often conflicts with your council meeting, and I can tell you on behalf of the League of Women Voters, we prefer our elected officials actually at their meetings, not at our receptions. So I would now like to present them with the certificates of appreciation they would have received that evening. And so first, for Councilor Bush, the certificate reads as follows. The League of Women Voters of Wake County presents this certificate to Councilor Lori Bush for her public service and in celebration of Women's Equality Day. And the League of Women Voters of Wake County presents this certificate to Councilor Jennifer Robinson for her public service and in celebration of Women's Equality Day.
Thank you so much.
Speech.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And Ms. Wynn, we're so grateful that you are here, and we want you to pass along thanks to the League. For a lot of people that don't know, the League does a lot of things, and they're involved in their community, in their government, and in past support of good government practices, as you mentioned. And such as a form of government, the League was responsible for creating the council manager form of government, which we operate under. So they had a big part in that. And there's more than 75.5 million Americans that are under that type of government. So thank you again for all you do.
Thanks.
Okay, we now move to the manager's update, and this time I'll call on Town Manager Stiegel.
I just want to begin by personally thanking the League of Women Voters because I wouldn't have a job without them. So, with that, I just want to thank, certainly we have a lot of public safety professionals in the audience with us here this evening, and many that work for the town of Cary for the preparation for the hurricane. We're going to talk about another hurricane here in a second, but to be able to see the level of preparedness, the level of sincerity, and then for us to be able to play such a meaningful role in helping other communities across North Carolina, because fortunately Cary was not nearly as impacted as we all know. And to see how they approached that, serving other communities as importantly as they serve in Cary was really represented Cary well, and I'm very, very proud of them and thankful that we have them all.
Thank you, Mr. Stiegel. Our next item is the presentation of the Higgins and Langley Award from the North Carolina Emergency Management Director, Sprayberry, and I would like to invite Director Sprayberry to meet me at the podium along with Deputy Fire Chief Mike Cooper and staff members from the fire department.
Good evening, Mayor Wembrick and Council. It is my honor tonight to introduce Mr. Mike Sprayberry, the Director of North Carolina Emergency Management. Mr. Sprayberry joined Emergency Management in July 2005 as Deputy Director and the Logistics Section Chief. A year later, he was tasked with the responsibility of the Operations Section. In February 2013, Mr. Sprayberry was appointed as the Director of North Carolina Emergency Management. Since that time, he has led the state through several disasters, including Hurricane Matthew and most recently Hurricane Florence. He also serves as the state's Deputy Homeland Security Advisor. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention that he is a veteran serving both in the United States Marine Corps as well as North Carolina National Guard, Army National Guard. Mr. Sprayberry, I'm sure that you and your staff have been extremely busy over the last several days and had many sleepless nights as y'all have prepared for and responded to Hurricane Florence, and for that, we are all extremely grateful. I would also like to thank you for taking your time to be here tonight to present this award. Council, it is truly my distinct honor and privilege to introduce a respected leader, emergency management professional, and a friend, Mr. Mike Sprayberry.
Thank you, Chief. I'd just like to tell Mr. Mayor and the rest of the council how honored I am to be here tonight. This is our 18th day of the State Emergency Operations Center being activated. So it has been a few long days and nights, but y'all need to really be proud of these folks right here, because I would characterize this model as a great model, not just for the state, but for the nation. What y'all do is y'all work closely with us so that you can have a ready, trained team to protect your own jurisdiction. And then when you are not at risk, you are able to deploy them under the state flag downrange to help other people in need. And so, as you know, they have been saving lives in Harnett County just recently for Hurricane Matthew. The award that I'm about to present is for their actions during Hurricane Matthew. And did I just say Matthew twice? Okay, thank you. That resonated for a second. Hurricane Florence, and then the award is for Matthew. And so, it's amazing to me that we can reach out to folks like this and say, we need you, no hesitation, but they can't do that without your support, right? And so it's just, we don't take it for granted. I want you to know that. And so, and it's exciting for me as the state emergency response team leader to be looking at Chief Cooper and all the rest of these guys to be ready to, all I got to do is pull the trigger, boom, they're out there, they're in the fight. And it means so much. I will tell you that in Matthew, over 2,000 people were rescued. In Florence, over 5,000. So pretty big, significant disasters, and these guys are right there saving people. And so I'm presenting them with the Higgins and Langley Swiftwater Rescue Outstanding Achievement Award, and that comes from an international association. Higgins and Langley were both pioneers in search and rescue. They both died in the line of duty. It's a hugely significant award, and as I mentioned, it's international. And the state of North Carolina received this award. We decided that what we wanted to do is to recognize all of the different components from across the state, to include Cary Fire, to make sure that they got the well-deserved recognition for getting in and helping us. So I read, the 2017 Higgins and Langley Swiftwater Rescue Outstanding Achievement Award is hereby presented to the Cary Fire Department as a response partner with North Carolina State Emergency Response Team for Hurricane Matthew response. In response to Hurricane Matthew, the state of North Carolina mobilized, organized, and deployed 77 boat crews and approximately 400 rescue personnel and 12 rescue aircraft. These local, state, and federal agencies' assets worked together to respond to the largest flood in North Carolina's history, rescuing over 2,300 people. 50 of the state's 100 counties were declared federal disaster areas, and the water levels surpassed Hurricane Floyd flooding storm of record in 1999. The crews responded in a coordinated and safe effort that resulted in no serious injury to any rescuers. So this was presented by the Higgins and Langley Awards Committee on September the 21st, 2017. And I would like to present it to Chief Cooper. Thank you very much. God bless each and every one. Finally, I'm presenting the chief with a proclamation by Governor Roy Cooper from Search and Rescue Day from last year. It was quite an honor. I was able to go to the mansion with a bunch of guys and gals just like these folks and to get this. And so we appreciate you so much. I mean, you just don't know what an honor it is to be associated with each and every one of you. So thank you again, Chief.
Thanks to all our fire members and for all their search and rescue, not only in times of disaster, but each and every day. And thank you to the director for his ongoing work. They're just getting started. They're going to move from now rescue to recovery, and it's incumbent upon all of us to find a way to help our brothers and sisters because they're going to need it. As I was talking with him a little earlier, he said there's 1,400, I think, in temporary residence right now that don't have a place to stay, and there are others that have tremendous damage. So it's going to take a long time and a lot of help. So we're with you. Let us know how we can help, and thank you for all you do.
It's great to be Cary.
Okay, we're going to move to the third item on the agenda. It's called Public Speaks Out. And I want to, well, first of all, I'll say that the instructions for speaking Public Speaks Out are on the printed agenda. And if you'd like to speak at Public Speaks Out, I'd ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved and follow the instructions on the agenda. You have 3 minutes for your comments, and you may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing, and that works for your benefit because public hearing speakers get more time. As a reminder, for those who want to speak, we tabled a lot at the beginning. So we tabled the North Harrison hotels, we tabled the Bainbridge, and we tabled the Green Level West Road and Pine Rail Lane topics. So we will not be making decisions on those. If you're here to speak, you can always speak, but just to remind you that we're not speaking on not deciding on those tonight. As I said, there's a 3-minute time limit, And not to be rude, but to be fair to our speakers, once your 3 minutes are up, I'm going to immediately interrupt you and ask that you conclude your comments. There's a timer light on the podium, and when that green light turns to yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when the yellow turns to a red, that's when I'm going to interrupt you. To have an effective public speaks out, I would ask that groups that are here have one person, a spokesperson, to speak on their behalf to reduce repetitive comments. Also, if you'd like to speak next after the person at the podium, I'd ask that you stand in the stairway over there and behind the town clerk, and that gives us all a signal that there are others to speak. And also, there's a 1 hour time limit on public speaks out, so we want to move things as rapidly as we can to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. All right, so now's the time for public speaks out, and I would invite our first speaker forward.
Thank you all. My name's Tim Bradshaw, and I live in Wessex, and I'm here tonight because I thought we were going to have a vote on the North Harrison rezoning, obviously. It's not always easy for me to make these meetings, and I'm sure it's the same for some of my neighbors. I hope that everything is well with the applicant, that there weren't any illnesses or injuries, but I also hope that there wasn't some kind of strategy in place for us to keep extending this. And I would respectfully ask that the next time this is scheduled, we take a vote.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't be quick. Good evening. My name is Dan Pike, and I'm a 23-year resident of downtown Cary and am fairly active in the community. This is Leah Smith, and I will formally introduce her momentarily. In April of this year, I became a member of the board of directors of the Cary Downtown Farmers Market and soon became its treasurer. First of all, on behalf of the board of directors, vendors, and patrons of Cary Downtown Farmers Market, I'd like to publicly thank each and every one of you and the town of Cary for your support that you provide the market. We treasure and appreciate our working relationship. Over the last several months, the Cary Downtown Farmers Market has experienced significant positive change. And in an effort to improve the culture, attitude, and spirit of the board and the market, we lost the market manager and unfortunately a few board members. Some of those departures have enabled us to move in the right direction and become a more solidified, determined, and forward-looking board and market. We're very enthusiastic because the best for the market is yet to come. Let me share with you a few things that the market's excited about. We've recently been granted the status to operate as a 501c3. We have hired a new market manager. Her name is Leah Smith. And she's already, since her September 1st start date, has made a huge impact on the market. She's married and has 2 amazing young daughters. She is the new face for the market, and we're really excited about how she's going to change the market and lead the market in the coming years. This Saturday is the Cary Downtown Farmers Market. We have the 2nd annual Farmers Fall Festival from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on the grounds of the Ivy Ellington House. We will have almost 50 vendors, including farmers, crafters, artists, demonstrations, food trucks, along with craft beer and wine and a kids area. 4 bands will entertain the crowd during the day, and we'll even have a pie eating contest. Ken?
Oh, yeah.
We would invite council and all Cary residents to come out and enjoy the Farmers Fall Festival. The market is putting on this event in conjunction with the town of Cary, and we certainly appreciate the town and their amazing support to help put this operation on. Lastly, the board, vendors, and patrons of the Cary Downtown Farmers Market would ask that we be included in the planning and layout of Phase 2 of the downtown park to include a permanent space for our farmers market to call home. Our location has bounced around over the years, and we would be honored and thrilled to have space in the downtown park. We did go to the planning meeting, and we hope as the planning continues, we will be called upon to provide further insight on how the Cary Downtown Farmers Market can add value, excitement, and people to the park each Saturday from April to November. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for all that you do. And again, thank you for your support of the Cary Downtown Farmers Market.
Thank you, Mr. Pike. Oh, I thought Ms. Smith was going to speak. You don't have to. I just thought you were.
She said next up.
Next speaker,
Plus the
please.
3 minutes is up.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Mike Hunter. I am stood in front of this council body for over 25 years, and I must say it's probably the first time I've ever stood in front of you, council members, during the Public Speaks Out. I am here to talk about the rezoning that you were kind enough to table for us tonight, but I wanted to take this opportunity to mention a couple of things that we need your help on. This, without a doubt, has been one of the most difficult pieces of property we've ever had. We own the property, we've owned it for over 4 years, and we've been working on it for that period of time. It's got a tremendous number of constraints that we brought to everybody's attention, including being bisected by a 4-lane divided median road. It is fronted by another essentially 4-lane divided median road. We are also bordered by the tobacco trail. We have done and worked diligently with the staff to try to accommodate the requests that you have with your goals out there. However, we still seem to be under a dilemma as to exactly what you're looking for. Specifically, when we talk about hearkening back to rural character, that's an unknown for us, and even this body here has had different interpretations, whether it's small lots or large lots, or we tried to accommodate the request by adding additional open space. We need your help. We need your input. In addition to this being a very difficult piece of property of all these years, my personal integrity was impugned by the suggestion that somehow we were not working with our neighbors whose property is also going to be bisected by this property in a fashion that would be appropriate. That was simply not true. I am most concerned about them. I stood in front of you and told you that. It is a very difficult situation. We have Apex on one side who does not care about rural character, who does not care about complementing the road system that Cary has put out there. So that's another issue we've dealt with. With that said, I want to make it very clear, the reason we've asked to table this is not only for your input and your help on this project, but in addition, to let you know that we have been and will continue to work with staff to try to come up with an appropriate solution that is acceptable to address those neighbors who's bisected by this road. With that, thank you for the timetabling. We look forward to a positive decision in the not-too-distant future.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Next speaker, please. Anyone else here for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, will close Public Speaks Out and move to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review our consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have minutes. Town Council recommended advisory volunteer appointments. Fiscal year 2019 locally administered project program called LAP, agreements with NCDOT. Request to recognize and appropriate federal equitable sharing funds. 17 REZ 14A amendment of Fenton mixed-use rezoning ordinance. Calling for a public hearing 18A14, Harsh and Rada Kachi annexation, 18A15, Anthony F. Farrar and Mary E. Smith annexation, and 18A16, Bal K. and Radha Sharma annexation. 18 REZ05, Carpenter Point rezoning. Final approval of 18A07, 3500 Arthur Pierce LLC and Swicegood annexation. 18 REZ Arthur Pierce Road North rezoning. Would council members like any of these pulled for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to our 5th item on the agenda, public hearings. Same rules apply for public hearings that apply for public speaks out, with one exception. Rather than 3 minutes for your comments, you now have 5. Our first public hearing is 18 RZ 14, Triangle Aquatic Center rezoning, expansion rezoning. Deborah Grannon will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this rezoning tonight, but it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board and will return to us at a future date. Ms. Grannon.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For your consideration this evening is a request made by the Triangle Aquatic Center, also known as TAC, to expand their existing aquatic center facility. It's located south of Cary Town Boulevard, adjacent to the Cary Town Mall, adjacent to the Ivy Meadows subdivision, and it's located on approximately 21.5 acres. According to Cary's growth framework map and the Imagine Cary Community Plan, the subject property is designated as a destination center. And with this designation comes some specific language in the Imagine Cary Plan that actually identifies the Triangle Aquatic Center as being a valuable element in this area. This is recognized as a regional draw, as a service to the community, and as something that helps promote both recreation and work in the environment. Current zoning on the subject property is office and institutional and residential 40, and then there's a small portion of the property that's resource and recreation. Back in 2004, there was an activity center concept plan that identified the aquatic center, and it allowed for approximately 70,000 square feet of building space and a swimming pool. And then there were some conceptual elements on the plan that were shown as illustrative elements. Recently, the applicant submitted a proposal to expand some administrative space in the building. There's a site plan in for review right now, because it was an approximate square footage on the building, so they added a little bit more space. But now they're coming back because they want to do an approximately 100,000 square foot expansion. They need an indoor or outdoor swimming pool and additional parking. So this has triggered the need to come forward with a request to rezone to MXD, Mixed Use District. So if approved, this Mixed Use District would replace that old 2004 Activity Center concept plan, and the new district regulations would apply. With MXD comes an opportunity. It's an opportunity to sort of craft specific zoning conditions for this property. It's also an opportunity to look for some modifications to typical aspects of the LDO to help facilitate the development. So the preliminary development plan shows the location of the existing facility in sort of the beige or tan color, with expansions in the light yellow. And then it shows you the location where the proposed addition is being presented. So this would add approximately 100,000 square feet to the preliminary development plan, the opportunity for an outdoor pool, a maximum building height of 65 feet. The applicant is seeking a total of 481 parking spaces. So this is 150 spaces in addition to what they already have. There is a greenway trail shown on the subject property. The applicant is proposing to dedicate the easement for the trail, but not do the construction of the trail. There's currently a 50-foot perimeter buffer adjacent to the Ivy Meadows subdivision, and the applicant is proposing to maintain that 50-foot buffer. The LDO would call for a 65-foot buffer, but the applicant would like to keep it the 50-foot buffer that it is currently. This is a rendering that the applicant submitted. This is not part of the preliminary development plan, so this level of detail is not included. We just have that previous sketch that we showed you. But this helps to illustrate a little bit more closely what the applicant is looking to do with their new training pool and the expanded facilities. And the applicant is present and will go into a little bit more detail about what their proposal is. This is to illustrate for you where that existing 50-foot buffer is located adjacent to the Ivy Meadows subdivision. Again, as I mentioned, the LDO would require typically a 65-foot buffer. Because this is in MXD zoning that's been requested, the applicant has the opportunity to request this modification. So staff has done a preliminary analysis of the Cary Community Plan, and do see that this does encourage expansion of that facility, which is identified as a desired use in this destination center. This could contribute to economic development in the Eastern Cary Gateway Special Planning Area. And this expansion would add to the growth of this regional athletic facility. This shows you the subject property in relationship to Cary Town Boulevard, which is a major thoroughfare. There are existing transit routes located in the mall property today. And as we move forward and look at future mall development opportunities, there's going to be more discussions with our transit folks about where the most appropriate sites would be for those transit sites in the future. So that's still to be determined exactly where those would be located. This shows you where the Greenway Trail is located on the southern portion of the subject property. There's a portion of the trail existing, and again, the applicants proposed to dedicate an easement so that it would facilitate the town's future development of that trail. The site is impacted by stream buffers according to Cary's most recent GIS maps, and field determination of those features will be required at the time of development plan review. Property owners within 800 feet of the subject property were notified by mail of this rezoning request, and the property was posted. There was a neighborhood meeting in June. There were a number of residents who attended the meeting. The concerns that they had pertained to the buffer and what sort of impacts there might be in that buffer area, and whether or not it would be maintained. There was concern about lighting and noise associated with outdoor activities, and whether or not there would be traffic impacts into the Ivy Meadows neighborhood, and whether or not there would be an extension of Trinity Road. We have not received any community feedback since this neighborhood meeting. At this time, I would like to call upon the applicant to make their presentation, and then following the public hearing, I will be available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grannon. This time I'll invite the applicant forward for their remarks.
Okay, that'll be for Mike. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Charles McDarris. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Bailey and Dixon. I, of course, have been before you many times as having served on your zoning board of adjustment for 3 terms and on the Historic Preservation Commission, so it's good to be back. The last couple of years, I've been working in volunteering time with Triangle Aquatic Center and Mike Curran. When my term on the HPC ended, I started looking for an activity, a volunteer activity. Met Mike Curran, and we started talking about a possible Olympic diving facility to be located here in Cary. We continue to work on that. We also discussed the need for the expansion of the Triangle Aquatic Center in meeting with staff. And talking over the last couple of years, it was determined that we would need to file for rezoning, so that is why we're here before you this evening. I want to thank Deborah Grannon, and I want to certainly thank Rob Wilson for their professionalism in working with us, and the wonderful staff that we have here in the town of Cary. I've lived here for over 20 years, and I'm very proud of the staff and the council and what has been put together here in the town. In putting the rezoning application together, I of course went through the Cary Community Plan and the Eastern Gateway Plan, and it was filled with references to Triangle Aquatic Center, and that being really a pillar of this area and the perceived expansion of this facility to bring many benefits to the town of Cary, from learn to swim programs for the young to senior programs for our senior citizens. I've been extremely impressed with what the Triangle Aquatic Center has done over the last 10 years, the programs that they've put together, and I think that that has been recognized by the council and by the staff, as well as public hearings in putting together the Cary Community Plan and the Eastern Gateway Plan. It's I've had to attach 3 additional pages to the rezoning application, making references to those plans and how Triangle Aquatic Center fits into that plan with a proposed expansion. I will point out that on page 133 of the Eastern Gateway Plan, after going through 132 pages of planning, the question is asked, how will we achieve our vision? And one of the bolded items on that page in response is to support the expansion of Triangle Aquatic Center. It says the town will consider partnering with the Triangle Aquatic Center to support the expansion of the center to include a new diving facility and future pools to expand the TAC offering. So certainly I think that we're here hoping for favorable consideration. We have this evening Mr. Mike Kern, who plans to give a 4 or 5 minute presentation of the history, the current status, and the future plans. We also have 2 answer questions, but they don't have planned presentations. We have architect Michael Sutton and Robbie Bell, the engineer. So if any questions come up, we can gladly have them help on any answers. So I'll ask Mr. Curran to step up. Thank you very much. She said do it.
It's done. Good evening. Wanted to just take a couple minutes to give you a brief history for those of you that aren't familiar with TAC, and just a quick update on where we are today and hopefully where we're going to be going tomorrow. Get you back.
So if you want to go to the next slide, just hit the down.
Okay, thank you. It's actually been 16 years ago where 5 of us sat around Panera Bread down at Crossroads over a cup of coffee discussing the lack of year-round public aquatic facilities in the Triangle. And from that meeting is where TAC was founded as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And then our journey began 16 years ago. A year and a half later, we were really lucky to buy the 21 acres that we have, ideally located right beside the mall, right off the major exit of I-40. And our partnership with the mall has actually been very, very good for a long time. And we hope it's going to continue to be as that develops. In 2006, all the steel started to go up. 2007 early, all the cement started to get poured. And then finally, 5.5 years later, on October 28th, the grand opening of TAC took place. It was a big ceremony, had a couple thousand people up in the stadium, had council members and Wake County commissioners, Howard, and a lot of constituents there. So it was a very exciting day. And it just happened to be exactly 2,000 days from that first cup of coffee that we had before we were able to open up. In the last 10 years, kind of the milestones, we kind of survived the Great Recession. We opened up TAC 3 months before 2008, and we're able to survive that, and we're now thriving. We've been known as the largest nonprofit public aquatic facility ever built in the country without any tax funding at all. We serve over 450,000 visitors through our front door every year. We have one of the largest Make a Splash programs, which we're very proud of, which provides free learn to swim programs for financially disadvantaged families. We're the #1 destination venue for aquatic events now in the entire state, greater than Greensboro, greater than Charlotte. Economic engine of $7 million a year in direct visitor spending, 100 jobs. 6 years ago, we started a swim team. We're now ranked 10th in the entire country out of over 2,000 swim teams. And we have experienced leadership in place, which allows me to do projects like this to continue to expand. We serve 10 out of the 12 municipalities in Wake County. Obviously, because we're in Cary, about 55% are there, but we do serve all of Wake County. The issue we have now, the good problem to have, is that we are absolutely at capacity. We have a swim team that's full with 200 people on our waiting list. We can't do any more learn to swim. Every time a public high school opens up, we can't meet their needs to serve them. So we need more water, and that's why we're here tonight. The focus is health, safety, and competition. We know we have a childhood and adult obesity problem here in America. Drowning is the second leading cause of accidental death in children 14 and under. We do over 2,000 swim lessons a year to help solve that problem. And competition with 33 public high schools, 27 private high schools, 6 USA swim teams. This area has grown to become the 7th largest swimming community in the entire country, as designated by USA Swimming. And you've seen this picture before. We're expanding the spectator stadium because we're full. We're adding parking. We're adding a 12,000 square foot high performance dryland fitness area to complement the water administration. But the most important thing we need is we need more water, and we're adding that 50-meter outdoor training pool. Thank you very much. Look forward to a positive result.
Thank you, Mr. Curran.
So again, this concludes staff's presentation and will be available for your questions after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grannon. Now's the time for the public hearing. 5.1, 18 REZ 14 Triangle Aquatic Center expansion rezoning. And I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing?
Debating.
Okay. Sorry. Before proceeding with the rezoning of the Triangle Aquatic Center, we request concerns be addressed.
State your name for us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dean Godwin.
Thank you.
And concerns be addressed, clarification be provided, and any special provisions be included. Some of our general areas of concern are loss of green space, loss of the protection buffer from current and future development of Cary Town Boulevard and Trinity Road, overall impact to property values. More specifically, we request that the proposed variance reducing the required buffer from 65 to 50 feet be removed to keep that 65-foot buffer. We asked about noise associated with the outdoor events. It was stated the outdoor pool was to be used for training only. We also asked about developing near the creek. It was stated that the topography didn't allow for development on part of the property. We request that these areas be identified where they want to develop near the creek. We also asked about the building height, which could be up to 65 feet. It was stated that there was no intention to build that high. We requested a more detailed map, plan, or rendering to better visualize impact on our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Next step in the process is for this to go to our advisory board, the Planning and Zoning Board, and they're going to review this and give us a recommendation of how it is consistent with our comprehensive plan. And it will return to us at a future date for final action. I'd like to thank the citizens for coming out tonight. I recommend that you continue to follow our website and contact us if there are any other questions you have this evening. Please continue to work with the applicant and don't hesitate to email, call any of us, including staff and council members if you have any questions. And we will see this probably in 2 or 3 months, I believe. So thank you.
Thank you.
We now move to our second public hearing, 18A13, Eric Bryan Whitman annexation. And Mr. Nicholas of our staff will introduce this hearing, and council may take action on this item. Mr. Nicholas.
Thank you. Good evening, council. This request is for annexation of 0.92 acres located at 6110 Mullins Drive, approximately 150 feet east of the intersection with Azalea Drive. Property is located in Cary's ETJ and it's zoned residential 12. It's contiguous to the existing corporate limits. Request is not associated with a proposed development plan or rezoning. The owner is wishing to connect property to town utilities. And in accordance with the town ordinances, the property must be annexed before it can connect to utilities. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Now's the time for the public hearing, 18A13, Eric Bryan Whitman annexation, and I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions, comments, or a motion. Basically, it seems like somebody needs to be rescued.
Right.
And so
Make a motion to approve annexation 18A13.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. We now move to our third public hearing, 18 REZ 11 Roberts Road rezoning. Mr. Wilson, We'll introduce the item. Council will not take action on this rezoning. Instead, it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and we will see it at a future date for decision. Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, Council. For your consideration is a request to rezone 36.4 acres at Roberts Road and Page Road. The site's generally located off Roberts Road in between NC 540 and NC 55. Trelawney Lane is located south of the site, Wood Forest Drive is to the east, and Wade Drive is to the north. The site's currently occupied by 4 dwelling units. Here's a view of the site's frontage on Roberts Road. The street sign and gravel path in the middle are the intersection with Page Road. The site's presently located in Wake County's jurisdiction and is zoned residential 40 watershed. The applicant has proposed annexation of the site by the town of Cary. The annexation would be a non-contiguous or satellite annexation. The town may annex the site because we have an annexation agreement with the town of Apex that runs down Roberts Road. The applicant's proposing the site be zoned transitional residential conditional use. According to GIS records, there appear to be 2 stream buffers that impact the site. The applicant's offering multiple zoning conditions related to this proposal. The uses are proposed to be limited to townhomes and neighborhood recreation. Density would be limited to 3.5 dwellings per acre, or a maximum of 127 units on the site. There would be 15 acres of open space, 15,000 square feet of community gathering space, which is 3 times the amount required, and a minimum perimeter buffer of 50 feet, which is 25% larger than the 40-foot requirement. The applicant has submitted a concept plan to show how the rezoning will provide open space. The graphic has several elements that I will go through individually. As shown here, the site has required stream buffers, and it also has required streetscape and perimeter buffers, which constitute approximately 1/3 of the site. These areas are shown with hatching and are proposed to be preserved. Additional managed open space areas, which are shown here in solid green, are also proposed. These areas may be cleared, graded, and landscaped. They may not include building structures, but may include stormwater control measures. Together, the required buffer areas and additional managed open space constitute about 40% of the site. There is one other element represented by this plan. A central community gathering area is also proposed. This area includes the required 5,000 square feet, which is represented by the green hatched area in the middle of the oval, and 10,000 square feet of additional open space, which is represented in solid green, for a minimum total of 15,000 square feet. A variety of conditions are also proposed regarding the appearance of the proposed townhouses, including the length of the buildings, spacing of garages, placement of windows, mix of facade materials, and roof treatments. As part of our preliminary analysis, staff has observed that this proposal seems to have the greatest potential connection to policies in the Imagine Cary Community Plan's Live and Shape chapters. I'm going to start by discussing the Future Growth Framework map in the Shape chapter. The site is located in the traditional neighborhood category, which predominantly consists of single-family detached dwellings. Traditional neighborhoods often do include moderate amounts of other housing types, though, such as patio homes, townhomes, and multifamily housing, but these tend to be sited in discrete pods. The proposed use may be consistent with this category if the applicant can provide justification that this site qualifies as such a pod or pocket of denser development. Policy 6 also talks about transitions between uses, in this case the proposed townhomes and nearby detached dwellings. The applicant has proposed several conditions in an effort to comply with this policy. This is an appropriate time to also note that Apex's 2030 land use map calls for medium-density residential on the south side of Roberts Road. With the Harmony subdivision and Turner Creek Elementary School to the north, and large lot detached residential in the area immediately surrounding this site, the proposal could potentially be viewed as providing more housing choices by adding townhouses to the mix of housing in the general area. Regarding the policy in the Live chapter of providing more housing options, the town of Apex did approve a rezoning in its jurisdiction across the street on August 7th that allows a mix of detached dwellings and townhomes with an overall density of 4.7 dwelling units per acre, up to a maximum of 185 units. In addition, the town of Cary has 2 other active rezoning proposals nearby, one for townhomes to the north and another for a retail development at the corner of Jinks Road and NC 55. Transit service is not available along Jinks Road or Roberts Road, although Go Triangle Transit service is available along NC 55. The town's planned roadway widths map calls for a future northbound collector avenue to be constructed through a portion of the site. This road is intended to ultimately connect Roberts Road to Turner Creek Road. The town does not have any existing or planned greenway or park facilities in this immediate area. The town does have a sewer line extension project along Jack Branch, northwest of the site, which is scheduled to begin easement acquisition later this year. The project will extend sewer and provide access to this general area on the east side of NC 540 and could be used to provide access to this site. This is a map that shows the property owners within 800 feet of the site that were notified regarding this public hearing. Notice was also posted at the site. A joint neighborhood meeting was held on June 11th for this project and the nearby rezoning at the corner of Jinks Road and NC 55. This meeting was attended by 55 citizens. Topics discussed that were related to this proposed rezoning included the proposed land use and density, site access, connectivity and traffic, buffers and transitions, and water and sewer service. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's representative is here and will now speak regarding the proposal. Staff will be available for questions following the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. At this time, I'd invite the applicant forward for their remarks.
It's actually applicant representatives in this case. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group. Here with me also is Glenda Top of Glenda S. Top and Associates. We are working on this together with the owners and the potential builder of the site. Excited for the opportunity to be here. Rob's done a very thorough job of presenting the case and the conditions associated with the development. I want to highlight a handful of things, and then Glenn is going to take over to talk a little bit about neighborhood coordination and communicating with folks in that area. The first, we believe, based upon the recommendations of the Cary Community Plan, the policies, as well as the built environment in this area, that this is a proposal that ultimately will be found to be consistent with the Cary Community Plan. This is going to be adding a townhome development where otherwise there are not townhome developments. As was mentioned in the staff report as well as Rob's presentation, what is being developed across the street in Apex is proposed for up to 6 units to the acre per their land use plan, and so that's their medium density residential is up to 6 units to the acre, and their recently proposed development, I think, was 4.7 dwelling units per acre, and was for a combination of single family, detached, as well as townhomes. And so what we're doing there is going to be consistent with what's going on across the street at Apex, and we'll also be able to provide a mixture of housing options in an area where right now it's primarily single family, large lot, single family detached. The second point I want to make is that the conditions we believe are appropriate. This case is appropriately conditioned. I think it's got a robust set of conditions for a case that is just now coming to you for the first time at a public hearing, and that's reflective of, obviously, this applicant's represented by two folks who do a lot of work with you all, and so we feel like we got a decent understanding about what the expectation is for cases like this, and so we have been pleased working with this particular applicant on their willingness to condition and make commitments with respect to the proposal that is consistent with what we perceive to be you all's expectation for cases like this. The third thing I want to mention is that a townhome development in this area is going to have great access to ultimately transportation corridors. 55, you can see on the slide, is not far away. U.S. Highway 1, or excuse me, 64 is just south of what you're seeing on the screen. It's not too far away. Ultimately, and 540 is not far from that. We don't have direct access, obviously, off Roberts Road onto 540, but it's not very far down 55 and ultimately 64 to get to 540. So we think it's well positioned with respect to increasing density in this area, providing folks transportation options with multiple thoroughfares and interstate options. The last point I want to note, there is a note in the staff report questioning whether this is proximate to services. And I brought this slide up because I do want to note that this site, this right here is the Food Lion anchored shopping center at the intersection of Jenks and 55. That includes an advanced auto parts and a Jersey Mike's and the ever important ABC store. So it's well positioned with respect to services in this location. It's actually I Googled it. I Google mapped it, and it's a 1-minute drive from the site to the food line. It's a 5-minute drive to Beaver Creek. And so we believe that from an access to services standpoint, we kind of hit that head on. Obviously, there isn't transit in this area, but all things considered, if we could approve every development within 1 minute of a grocery anchored shopping center, we'd be doing well. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Glenda to talk a little bit about neighborhood coordination.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of council. Just want to add a couple of things. Mr. Barron and I would not be here tonight if we didn't believe that the proposed rezoning is the best use of the property and clearly complies with the policies and principles of the Cary Community Plan. Since the neighborhood meeting, we have been working diligently to address the comments that we heard at the neighborhood meeting. As Mr. Barron pointed out, there is a much longer, extensive number of zoning conditions that we added. We also had worked with staff in coming up with a concept plan to help to visually show the zoning conditions that we have added. We are committed to continuing to talk to and meet with the neighborhoods, and in this particular case, we have already scheduled a neighborhood meeting, knowing that that was needed. So notices have been mailed, and just to be able to say tonight, the meeting is being held on October 10th at 7:15 at Bond Park. So with that, I will close. But again, we do feel that the proposed rezoning complies with the Cary Community Plan, and we look forward to working with everyone as we continue the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Top. Now's the time for the public hearing for 18 REZ 11 Roberts Road rezoning, and I would invite our first speaker forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Michelle Conlon, and I'm here to speak about the neighborhood rezoning case 18 REZ 11 for Roberts Road rezoning. I'm here representing my neighbors from Pagewood Forest and Trelawney, as well as Wade Drive. There's several of us here in the audience. We've also signed a petition, about 46 of us have signed it so far, to represent our unified views on this. The neighbors of Pagewood Forest and Trelawney Lane are united in opposition to the proposal to rezone Roberts Road and build a high-density community. The neighbors have detailed the reasons why this rezoning is bad for the town of Cary, Wake County, and the neighborhoods of Pagewood Forest and Trelawney. The proposed rezoning and construction of a high-density townhome development is inconsistent with the existing land uses in the area. The proposal, as written, would increase residential density in the immediate area by more than 400%. Our current density is 0.42 homes per acre, and you're talking about putting a 3.5 home per acre density community in the middle of our neighborhoods. This townhome project would increase surface water runoff as well as ground and water pollution. Pagewood Forest and Trelawney Lane drinking water wells would be endangered by the project. This would compromise the health of the existing residents, while the townhome residents would be serviced by pollutant-free water from the town of Apex. The high-density development would drastically increase traffic on Wood Forest Drive as well as Trelawney Lane, creating traffic jams, delays, excessive road wear, and endangering children who play and walk near the existing road. Noise, light, and air quality impacts would also be greatly increased, and our quiet neighborhoods would be irreversibly ruined. This townhome project would have devastating impacts on the surrounding neighbors, most of whom have lived here 20 years or more. In addition to the groundwater runoff, air pollution, water pollution, noise, light, traffic, and other impacts I mentioned, the density of this development would require the developer to revise one of our private dead-end streets to be an entrance to the new townhome community. Wood Forest Drive is a private road that services traffic for 9 residents. The developer would turn that road into a new thoroughfare going from Highway 55 through to Roberts Road, serving 144 residents and a 15,000 square foot community recreation clubhouse center. My neighborhood, Pagewood Forest, was developed in 1995 from about half the original Page property. The surrounding neighborhoods and we comprise 70 homes in total, including the Page's property. We long have expected the remainder of the Page property to be developed one day, and we support their efforts and we wish them success. However, the jurisdictional boundaries and the zoning ordinance that's long been in place here gave us all to understand that any development would be compatible with the surrounding land use. We bought our forever homes here. The annexation and rezoning actions now being requested would completely alter the landscape of this peaceful, quiet residential corridor. The rezoning application stated that townhomes are needed in Cary to accommodate a wider range of demographics. I've personally counted 9 townhome neighborhoods that are recently built or under construction within a 10-mile radius of our neighborhood. Maybe several more hundred townhomes are needed in the district. You, the town council, Mr. Mayor, are best poised to make that decision. However, there are myriad reasons why the Page property, an established area that has long been zoned for quiet rural neighborhoods, is not the appropriate site for such high-density development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing?
Hi, my name is Angela Warren, and I live in the Pagewood Forest neighborhood. Our neighborhood, Pagewood Forest, is adjacent to the Page property on Roberts Road. We have a very quiet neighborhood with only 9 houses on a dead-end street. Our children have grown up here playing in the street and learning to ride their bikes without the worry of cars coming down the street. The only cars we have are people that live there, that know that children are out in the street playing. If this neighborhood goes forward, the rezoning goes forward, and our neighborhood is connected to the large number of units that are going to be built, the traffic is going to increase greatly on our road. Right now, we may have 50 cars a day down our road, and that's usually when a house is being built. If this is connected to that large neighborhood, we could see multiple of hundreds of cars coming down our street daily. Our children will not have their nice, quiet neighborhood. We will not have our nice, quiet, peaceful, rural neighborhood. Again, we hope that the Page property is developed for their benefit. They've been so nice and gracious to us. But I do ask that you do not allow connectivity to the Wood Forest neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. If you would do us all a favor, if you plan on speaking, please line up on the stairs so we can keep moving. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, hi, my name is Paul Nashawati. I live on Wood Forest Drive as well.
Can you say your name again?
Paul Nashawati.
Thank you.
And I live on Wood Forest Drive as well. Rather than kind of going into details of facts and figures, and I feel that our neighbors, Michelle, Angela, really represented us very well in some of their statements that they said. I wanted to kind of go into a little bit more of a kind of an emotional response with this neighborhood planning. We purchased our home about 14 years ago in this neighborhood with the intent of staying here. This is our, as Michelle kind of pointed out, our forever homes, right? And one of the things we loved about our neighborhood and in the area was what it brought to the table, the remoteness, the kind of the neighborhood that it provided. We also know that there's a need for growth and a need for modernization in the town, and we support that, right? We definitely support that. But one of the things that we also want to do is impact we don't want the town and the development that goes around our neighborhoods and our houses to impact our quality of life, right? And our quality of life that we've purchased into and as ownerships, as residents, as long-term residents as well. We don't want our quality of life to be impacted. And some of the things that has already been addressed, such as traffic patterns, crime, has been addressed, noise and light pollution, but more importantly, some of the things like well water. I noticed with my own situation, our well water has been impacted by the recent developments within the area. Okay, so we're just concerned about, a lot of us neighbors are concerned about these things that are coming up, and we really just want the council to understand and represent us as neighbors and residents as well as the new development that's going in, to make sure that we can have a common goal of having the future growth of Cary, but also their existing long-term residents that have been here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Council members, good evening. My name is Mike Smith. I live at 105 Trelawney Lane. On the map, I'm in the corner between this proposal, excuse me, and the new approved townhome development across the street. Development is important to Cary. It's been important to my family. We've prospered by it here, but in this instance, it feels a little bit like encroachment, but that's mainly because of where I'm located. We understand there's going to be development. The main issue that I want to bring to your attention is traffic on Roberts Road. The existing traffic analysis here and in Apex did not really count the increased traffic to Apex High School. There are some statements that have been made about how close grocery stores and other amenities and services businesses are, and that's true. And Roberts Road is not full of traffic and cars all the time. From 6:15 in the morning until 7 a.m., anyone from Trelawney, from this new site, from across the street, is going to face a great challenge in getting onto Roberts Road. There are hundreds of cars going to the school. When school lets out in early afternoon, of course, there's return traffic. I think with the timing of the proposed development, that there's plenty of time for you all and staff to look at the traffic, because it will correlate, I think, to your conclusions about density. We're interested, of course, in the quiet enjoyment of our properties. That's going to change some, but we hope you really take into consideration all of the things that we have raised about traffic and the impact. Scott Farm subdivision has been on the books since the 1970s. Page Road, Wood Forest, more recent, but we do enjoy a special kind of quality of life there. We need your help in preserving what we can of it. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for this public hearing?
Just see. Can't wait.
Harold, can we get a picture with the stream buffers back up on there?
Now?
Yeah, evening, gentlemen. I'm not usually a good speaker, but my concern is the same thing. I live at 505 Trelawney Lane, been there for 40 years.
Could you give us your name? If you did, I apologize.
Patrick Farley, Farley. We've been there 40 years, raised 2 children and now grandchildren. I understand, basically this is all about money. Townhomes are not really needed there. They can get the same volume of money from just residential lands, houses with good acreage. Right now, what they're talking about, there is no connection so far that we see on Wood Forest. If there is, I know what they're going to be going through, because we now have, with the new high school, as the previous gentleman mentioned, we have a freeway going through Trelawney Lane for the kids going to Food Lion, Jersey Mike's. We've had one lady, Dot, she's probably hit the ditch twice with kids running through. So whatever development goes through on the Page property, do not allow a throughway with the Pagewood Road. You may be saving somebody's life. But we're not trying to stop development. We understand, and right now you'll probably be seeing me and my neighbors here because we're working out a process on the R40 on Jensen 55 for development there. But just hope you can understand where we're coming from and appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we continue, Ms. Robinson requested that we get the slide with the stream buffers.
Yeah, if that's possible.
And while he's doing that, I would invite our next speaker forward. Anyone else for this public hearing? Last call. All right, we're going to close the public hearing. I want to thank all of our speakers for coming out, and what you say is very important. It's also important to continue to work with the applicant. That's very, very important. And I heard a comment by the last speaker that really disturbs me when I hear it's all about money. It's never all about money up here. That is not what we care about up here. Just a little background. Cary Council and staff does not drive the development. Development is driven by market. Now, what we did, we invited all our citizens to create a plan, the Cary Community Plan. If this area develops, what do you want to see? And in that plan, staff has pointed out live and shape and all these categories that the Cary citizens created. We didn't create it. They created it. And then there were decision points of black and white. We want this or we want this. That's where our decision making came in. And then we approved the overall plan. So that's what this is based on. Now, the property owners have the right to develop, as you acknowledged, and so they're going to develop. What they develop is got to match the plan and has to have a zoning approved, and of course, that's why we're all here tonight. And so it's important to talk about the issues that you mentioned, not only with the applicants, but with staff, and get all the correct information. I'll ask staff some of this. Was there a traffic study done for this? No.
No.
So there's no traffic study, so I'm not sure where the traffic information is coming from. The connectivity, is that a requirement by the state or the federal government or local or all of the above?
No, we have connectivity requirements in the land development ordinance. They also have some flexibility, and that's an issue that's addressed during development plan review.
Okay. And so development plan review is after the rezoning occurs. That's when they talk about the connectivity. Runoff. Do we have requirements for runoff?
Yes, we do.
And what are the minimum requirements for runoff?
In general terms, they're expected to, the water should be retained the same, post-development should match pre-development.
Post-development?
10-year storm.
I'm going to need to get someone from our stormwater group to answer that level of detail.
I don't want to mislead anybody to think it's going to be exactly the same, because if a 100 or 200-year storm comes up,
which we just had,
Right.
it's not going to be the same.
And Billy's the expert. Billy Lee can speak to exactly what the ordinance requires.
We didn't have a 100-year storm here, but
yes.
Anyway, yes, they're required to go to pre-development standards for the 1, 2, 5, and 10-year storm.
And if runoff is an issue in this area, not putting any words in anybody's mouth, that's something you can work with the applicant on, their retention of runoff. Pollution of air and water, do we have any controls over that?
Well,
come on, that's an easy one.
Yes, we do.
Say yes.
Again, from a stormwater standpoint, we require stormwater control measures, and those stormwater control measures are put in to protect our water quality in terms of when storm water runs off, it's treated and then goes downstream.
So the pollution is mitigated on site before it can leave the site,
Yes,
before it can get any well water.
That is correct.
Okay. And those are some of the things that I've heard. And so it's very important to continue, like I said, I'm repeating myself, but to work with the applicant. And staff has answers too. If you're curious about some things you've heard or haven't heard, contact them. They're going to respond. And if they don't, let me know. I'll make sure that we get a response for you. And I'll open it up to my colleagues for additional comments or questions. Ms. Robinson.
I'll just muse over it a little bit. I mean, when I saw this in conjunction with the other things going on, it reminded me of the mid-'90s in the community that I live in, where we felt like we were under siege. That's the terminology we use, because there's so much development activity suddenly occurring, and that in conjunction with the new high school, which generates a ton of traffic, it's very impactful on the people living in the area. I totally feel for them, for the parents who live on Wood Forest Drive, to see the investment that they've made have potential impacts. This is really emotional for a lot of people, so I completely understand where they're going. When the mayor talks about the connection being something that's done during the development plan review, that means that the applicant can't put in a condition that says there'll be no connection, because that is less strenuous than what the ordinances say. So because of that, you have to go under the presumption that there's going to be a connection, and then hope during development plan review that for some reason maybe that stream isn't crossable or something like that. But I would echo the mayor's comments that it's critically important that you get engaged with the applicant, that you try to explain and work with them to try to have a type of development that would complement your community, the one that you can live with. You're not going to get 40,000 square foot acre lots. You're not going to get something that is like that, because we don't see that being built anywhere within the town plan. And, you know, the overall density of 3.5 is just marginally above what we have as our low-density residential. So it's a totally different standard when you're inside the city versus being inside the county. So I would just encourage you to work with the applicant, try to find compromise. We definitely have work on our side to do. I will be very interested in understanding the topography of this site, given that there's 2 streams on it, and what that means for the development that goes on there. And then also Roberts Road. I mean, we do have to be very proactive, and I'm not sure, and maybe the other council members are better versed than I am, but I don't know what we're planning to do about this road, that when you drive down it, it feels very small and quiet street, and yet it's carrying a heavy load now between Beaver Creek and the high school and then all these developments. So I think we have some work to do as well to kind of make sure we're shoring up this little corner of Cary.
And is that a state road? I'm guessing it is.
Yes, it is. And just to add that the situation with the high school, we expect that the commuting patterns will shift. There's a lot of traffic coming up from Apex while it's temporarily serving as Apex High School. When they move back to their location, the commuting patterns will be a little better distributed, and we won't have as much of Apex driving through this corridor to get to the school.
See that?
Just another question, since you brought up roads. The Wood Forest Drive, that road, is that a county, state? Because we're talking about Roberts, right?
Yes. I believe that Wood Forest Drive is a private road.
Is it private?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, that would be, it would be interesting for the applicant to work very closely with those neighbors too, because I'm sure they've invested a lot in that private road. And so it makes sense that that would be a connection, since it's more than 100 units and there has to be multiple access points. I could see that being one of the potential connections.
Other comments?
Well, I think it's great that the applicant has plans, the applicant and his representatives have plans to continue working with the neighborhood. Looks like you have a lot of work to be done. Our Cary community plan, I'll tell you what I'm stuck on, I guess, throughout all this. Our Cary community plan labels this as traditional neighborhood, which is primarily single family with pockets of townhomes allowed. And I just don't know how 127 townhomes on 36 acres is a pocket. Pocket's hard to define. We haven't defined that, so I can understand interpreting that in different ways. But that doesn't necessarily fit my definition of a pocket for a traditional neighborhood. So I still need to be convinced as we move this along.
And to that point, since 40% of that parcel is not developable or is being used for other reasons, it means 60% is going to take all the development. And so while the 3.5 units an acre is an average, we're talking more like 6 units an acre with the townhomes.
We don't have that exact calculation, but we can certainly bring that
Roughly.
when it comes back.
But that
we can bring
information would be helpful, especially, and the applicant did talk about below, south, that they were doing medium density, which could go up to 6 units an acre. So that gave me a better feel of what you're talking about. So that kind of information would be helpful. Mr. France, you had anything? Nope. Oh, Mr. Jordan.
I would like clarification in the future, not necessarily here tonight, on how the tiering of the streets and a private street and the connectivity ordinance, how that works, because I'm looking at, I don't even know how wide.
That's a good point. I don't know how private streets come into play in connectivity.
And how wide or narrow that private street is.
Maybe give us some examples of places where we've connected a public road to a private street. That'd be interesting to us.
And do we have responsibility, or do we take it over or something? Because how does then people who maintain their own street, when all of a sudden there's 40 times the traffic on the street?
Good point.
Yeah, as you know, we changed our connection policy about, 4 or 5 years ago. So we'll look to bring you some scenarios, more information when this returns to you.
That'd be helpful to me.
Well, regardless if it's a private street or a public street, it has to comply with DOT regulations of usage, right? I mean, a private street doesn't have the option to be a playground, correct? A street is not intended.
Assuming that it's on NCDOT's map, there would be, but we do see some variation in terms of the private NCDOT type streets. So, there's some variance. We can, Is there anyone with transportation facilities that?
I think the concern, Jack, is who's ultimately responsible for maintenance and.
I understand that, but I think also as we grow, we have to look at setting the expectations. And, I know it's many, many, many years ago when my daughter was hit, but the reality is that a street is not a playground. And I think, that can't be the factor as we're looking at things. I think what we have to look at is it a properly maintained street? Does it meet code? And as we connect and we create more traffic, is there a responsibility for us, to make sure that that's a safe road? I think that's the point. Maybe I didn't say it well, but that's the point I was getting at.
Any other comments or questions? Did you have a clarifying point, Mr. Barron?
I just want to clarify with respect to the access road. As a private access road, unless the site that we're working on has been given the right to access through that, even if we provided a road stub, the owners of the property there enjoy that private access easement could put up a barrier, because again, it's a private road unless it's been dedicated for public access or access has otherwise been granted to this site. From a legal standpoint, even if we were inclined to stub to it, which we don't care to necessarily, they would have the right to close it off. So just wanted to add that piece of information.
Great information.
It's helpful.
It's good information.
Anyone else? Okay, what's going to happen now is this is going to go to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation. The Planning and Zoning Board is appointed by this council, and they're citizens just like you. And so they're going to review it, how it compares with the plan and does it make sense. And they have a wide variety of views on things. So they're going to probably get it in a month or two. They're going to make a recommendation, then it's going to come back to us after that for a month after that. So we got about 2 to 3 months before we'll see this. So there's plenty of time to work with the applicant and get some changes made if you would like changes made, get your questions answered or anything else that may help you alleviate some of your concerns, or maybe not, but we have time is my point. And I want to again thank you for coming out, and if you have questions, please let us know. And thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Council.
All right. Was that our last public hearing? Yes, that was our last public hearing. We had several discussion items, many which got tabled. So I'm thumbing through to see which is our first one. Is number 3, Village at the Park, 17 REZ 23. And this was tabled at the August 23rd meeting. So the first thing we have to do before we discuss it is remove it from the table. Is there a motion to remove 17 REZ 23 Village at the Park PDD Amendment Phase 4B from the table?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously and is removed from the table. Now that we've removed it, I'm going to recognize Ms. Dry, who will give us a staff presentation.
Good evening, Council. This is a request to rezone 15.94 acres at 7655 Kit Creek Road and 5329 NC 55 Highway. The property is undeveloped. It's at the corner of Kit Creek, Green Level Church Road, and touches NC 55 on the east. The current zoning is PDD Major as part of the Village of the Park Plan Development District, and the site is identified as Phase 4B. The site, which is shown here in purple, again identified as Phase 4B, has current allowed uses, which consist of retail, office, hotel, and multifamily units. The Village of the Park PDD, when it was originally improved, was intended to be a mixed-use community which incorporated retail, office, and residential uses in a walkable environment. The limits of the PDD are shown here in yellow. The Village of the Park PDD has been amended several times over the past 15 years, and current land uses consist of 2 multifamily developments, a gas station with a convenience store, and an elementary school. And this rezoning seeks to amend Phase 4B of Village of the Park to allow a maximum of 300 multifamily dwellings or townhomes and 15 to 19,000 square feet of office retail use. So along with these proposed uses, the applicant has proposed a building height of 35 feet for the non-residential uses and 60 feet for the residential uses. They've also proposed transportation improvements, which include a second northbound left turn lane onto from NC55 Highway onto Kit Creek Road, as well as off-site improvements at Green Level Church Road and Wake Road, Green Level Church Road, and Stonewater Glen Lane. Along with this PDD amendment, they're also proposing that 60% of the multifamily units be limited to one-bedroom units. And with that, proposed a reduced parking ratio to 1.68 spaces per unit. And that any of the townhouses would have 50% would be two-car garages. Staff has evaluated the case using the Imagine Cary plan. And first, we look at the town's future growth framework map. And we note that the site is within the mixed neighborhood development category, which is intended to provide residential uses within 2 miles of the Research Triangle Park, located in northwestern Cary. Mixed neighborhoods would have a substantial variety of housing types and densities, and predominant land types will include residential detached, townhomes, and multifamily housing. Applicable policies also come from the Live, Work, and Shape chapters. When we look at the Live chapter, we looked at policies that call for expanding housing choices and providing a variety of housing options. When we look at the Work chapter, staff notes that future residents and workers at this location may enjoy a quality of life benefit of being able to live adjacent to employment at RTP. We also noted with Policy 8, which speaks to ensuring adequate land is available to develop employment uses, it is noted that there is currently an allowance in Tract 4B for office and retail and hotel, and this would be reduced to 15,000 to 19,000 square feet of office and retail. When we look at the town's GIS maps, it shows that the site is impacted by stream buffers. There's also a natural gas line easement which traverses the site. According to the Parks, Recreation, Cultural Resources Facilities Master Plan, street side trails are proposed along NC55, Kit Creek Road, and Green Level Church Road. Trails have been constructed along NC55 and Kit Creek Road, and any remaining gaps would be constructed with the corresponding road frontages for the site. Additionally, the plan identifies a future community park located approximately 0.4 miles to the south of the site. The adjacent roads on Green Level Church Road, Kit Creek Road, and NC55 are all thoroughfares. And there's an existing GO Triangle transit route located to the east on NC55. A traffic study was completed which evaluated intersections within 1 mile of the project boundary. And the applicant has offered to complete most of the transportation improvements at the intersections recommended for improvement by the traffic study. In addition to the improvements at the site drives for the development, the applicant has offered to complete improvements at Green Level Church Road and Stonewater Glen Lane, and also Green Level Church Road and Wake Road. The second northbound left turn lane and signal modification, which has been offered at the intersection of Highway 55 and Kit Creek Road, would also provide additional capacity and satisfy some of the area's traffic needs. The staff finds the request to be consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan and found that policies that were applicable come from the Live, Work, Shape, and Move chapter. Further, it's noted that this proposed residential use with some office and retail fits within the mixed neighborhood designation. And the use of multifamily, again, with office and retail, we believe is consistent with the Imagine Cary plan. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval. This case was heard by the Planning and Zoning Board, who also found the case to be consistent with the plan and recommended approval by a vote of 7-2. And Board Chair Mark Evangelista is here to share comments.
Thank you. Most of the against was if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The existing plan seemed to be a good fit for the way things are. 300 units really close to a school, even though schools aren't our thing. 300 more units right next to a school was a concern. Policy 6 and Live, there were some concerns with that, mostly with the way some terms about affordable housing was being considered with this, and it really wasn't as it was intended.
the current setup was probably more consistent with the overall area than switching this over to townhomes. Now, that said, even though there's office being lost and all, there's still plenty of opportunity for office and commercial left that's undeveloped, that's still within the plan. So the folks who voted for this saw that this wasn't taking away office, never to be returned again. It was just taking a piece of it. The proximity to Parkside Common is a big deal because that's almost not quite walking distance, but it's really close. You heard earlier about this 1-minute drive to amenities. Well, it's really in that ballpark there. It's adaptive mixed use. There's great traffic improvements that are going to be offered up that we were really pleased with. One note about sort of traffic related, parking is being reduced more and more and more, which really isn't such a bad thing because it's kind of a sign of the times now that maybe we don't need as many parking places as we used to. And that's something we may want to look at going forward. It didn't affect this, but it was just an interesting comment to be brought out. So 7-2, the folks who were opposed to it just thought it was a change that didn't need to be made, but there were still plenty of folks who thought the change would fit in just fine.
So the change didn't need to be made. Did they specifically state they would prefer it to be office?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Evangelista? Thank you.
So this concludes staff's presentation. We're available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dry. Okay, open it up to council members for questions, comments.
I have a question.
Yes.
Clarification, because this has come up several times, and I don't know what the rule is. When there's building height specifications for non-residential and then building heights for residential that are two different heights, and if somebody mixes residential over non-residential, which one carries the day? Which height do you go with?
So yes, I did look into this, and if residential is proposed over non-residential, the non-residential building height restriction would apply.
Thank you, that's very good.
Okay. Good question, I didn't know that.
Can you talk about the connectivity for anyone from this area to get to the school? Do they have to walk up to Kit Creek Road? What's the connectivity to walk across to school?
Let me see if I can find a slide that could illustrate that.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with this area, Alston Ridge Middle School is being built adjacent to this, so there's two schools, not just one.
Right.
Yeah, so there are street side trails on this side. There would need to be street side trails, I believe, built on this side. And yes, I do believe you would have to walk up to this intersection to go across.
And the middle school, if I remember, is that south of the elementary school, right? So they would have to go north to go south? Is there any other connection to go to the middle school?
I don't believe so at this time.
So and that's a thoroughfare?
That's correct. It's a major thoroughfare.
Major thoroughfare.
You wouldn't want a pedestrian crossing somewhere that didn't have a traffic signal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if there's any other planned traffic signals anywhere else along that route, or like, can you go south and then go up?
What about what we have right south of the Fire Station 8, where we had the meeting last night? There's one of those push buttons so they can get across the street. That's not considered a traffic signal. What's that considered? A
pedestrian crossing.
A signalized pedestrian crossing. And to me, that seems, well, go ahead. Just seems like an option.
So when the next school that's being built, which is basically in this area right here, there's also their entrance comes down here. There will be a new intersection with a signal put there. Okay. The one challenge that we'll have is there is going to be a gap in the sidewalk along this property because it's not widened yet. So that is going to be a challenge for us to tackle. With how do we get pedestrians on this side of the road down to a safe crossing. So that is the one gap that remains out there.
And is that not part of the property owned by That gap that's right, I don't know, at that L, or that inverted L, that's not part of the
No.
multifamily below it? That's not, okay. Thank you.
We had something similar on Green Level Church Road a long time ago, remember? And we ended up putting, I guess, a gravel sidewalk in there for several years until development occurred and we could,
Right.
pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, we've had workarounds before when we needed it.
It'd be nice to consider this before or as part of this discussion, that we engage them, because the school's not that far away.
Well, and keep in mind, we do have time to address that gap in the sidewalk to get to the potential connection. I mean, even if this was approved today, before this site was actually built and construction is 2-3 years from now, so we have time. Hearing that there's going to be another traffic signal down south is definitely
I
positive.
didn't catch that before.
And it might be something that, in working with NCDOT and Campo and some of our partners, we might be able to get that sidewalk connection sooner than later. To me, the proposal makes sense. It's providing, quote, workforce housing next to work. You know, you've got RTP right to the east. I mean, it's a great site for multifamily where you've got things continuing to grow and expand at RTP. 60% of the units are going to be one bedroom, so 60% of the units are not going to be crossing the street going to school because they're not going to have school kids. You know, it's on a major thoroughfare. Town staff and our planning and zoning board have looked at this and recommend approval. I think it's a good fit. I really do.
So I want to ask a question because I'm still struggling with this. And the reason I'm struggling is what are the advantages and disadvantages of having 1,000 multifamily units right in a row? And that's what I struggle with. Is it a bad planning move? Is it okay? I mean, if you're going to have a lot of multifamily, that's where to have it, right next to employment.
I would think if it was a bad move, our professional planners would probably say something about it.
Did y'all discuss that? I was just curious. I would love to hear what y'all thought about it.
Yeah, yes, we certainly did. We looked at the proposal that this is, you know, the original proposal for Village at the Park was intended to be a mixed-use development. We do note that the market has shifted, and this is very close to Research Triangle Park. We also did look at some of the site challenges with the site, with the natural gas line easement and some of the stream buffers. We noted that that made it challenging to develop.
When you say challenging to develop, does that mean there's certain activities that can't happen with the natural gas line? Can you not have a hotel, or can you not have, I mean, some of the things that were originally planned?
From what I understand, you can't have buildings over a natural gas line easement. You could potentially have parking and circulation. That would have to be approved by the gas pipeline company, though, to do that.
Good to know.
I think one thing that's kind of interesting, I pulled up the site on MapQuest just so I could kind of pan out a little bit. And if you were to do that, what you see is a tremendous amount of employment. I mean, just absolutely tremendous. Plus, you see this huge retail section that has basically sucked the opportunity for retail out of a lot of land surrounding it. I'm not talking about this parcel because that's never been brought up to me by this applicant, but other parcels in the area, the owners have said, I can't put retail here because all the retail is going over to the shopping center. So, you know, is it appropriate to have 1,000 apartments all in a row? I mean, it depends, right? You put it into context. I mean, I looked this up because you asked that question. And I'd say when you go and you put it into the broad spectrum or the broad context of the whole area, I'd say, yes, probably appropriate.
I have to say, I was going back because I think I was on the planning and zoning board when the Northwest area plan, so when this Alston plan came about, and I was really disappointed that a hotel hadn't showed up. So that one of the things that we originally envisioned was that that all these employment areas right there would need hotels, because as someone who works right down the road at Kit Creek Road, you know, there are no hotels that are close. And so people have always said, wow, you know, I had to drive pretty far, right, to get here. And so I'm disappointed that one of the options of, you know, office or hotel didn't come to fruition. But I also know that the market needs are what drives some of this. But I had really hoped that a hotel or maybe retail with, residential above it or something like that could make it here, because it's a perfect location with all the businesses on Kit Creek.
I think there might be a hotel going up at O'Kelly Chapel Road. I was just looking at the structure, just by the structure of it, it looks like it's a hotel and not an office building.
Oh, okay.
So that's just good to note.
Not that
Just
far
speaking from a mom's perspective, some moms don't like hotels being right next to the elementary school and the middle school because it's a transient population that goes through. So just saying it's a different idea.
Well, there's also lots of other opportunities for development in this area, and a hotel would clearly not be out of the question, so. In the meantime, they could stay at the really nice one on Harrison and 40 or in downtown, so.
Do we have any other comments?
Yeah, just, I just think it's unfortunate. Logic prevails. I think, Don, you articulated all the right reasons for it, but it does seem kind of petty that if you're going to take advantage of rezoning and taking away what was originally planned, for God's sake, put the damn sidewalk into where the light's going to be so that we don't have to deal with it down the road with DOT. It isn't that much, and it just, I don't know, maybe it's unrealistic, but they're gaining the advantage by putting those apartments in. It wouldn't hurt to have the sidewalk into the proposed light.
If he was allowed, it's not his property, I mean, if he's allowed.
I understand. I understand. But, this is where I think during the negotiations and all that, this is the time to leverage that. It's not going to be, I understand that, but I think it's a lost opportunity.
It's a fair point, Jack.
Yeah.
Any other comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
What's the number? Make a motion to approve 17 RAZ 23.
You got a,
Mr. France?
Oh, we have
you got a thing.
Yeah, you
Okay.
have
That's why I didn't make the motion.
Which is why we were all silent on that.
We'll ignore his comment and he will try again.
Okay. I move to adopt this, no, it's the consistency statement.
That's it.
That's correct.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. I move to adopt the statement of consistency as attached to the staff report and approve 17 REZ 23 Village at the Park PED Amendment Phase 4B.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. I.
Was that really different than my first emotion? I mean, really?
I think it saves its consistency statement motion.
The second
Saves a second
consistency.
motion.
Right,
Yeah.
use them both together.
Okay, so all our other discussion items were tabled unless I missed it. They were all tabled, so we're ready to go into a marathon closed session. And I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Okay, pursuant to GS that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by and or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town, among other things. We expect to receive advice concerning the following lawsuits. In re Memento Mori LLC, Chapter 11, case number 1804661-5 DMW, and Hawthorne at Parkside Apartments LLC and Evolve Acquisition LLC versus the town of Cary, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential by GS 143-318-10E.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and we're in closed session. you.